Hey guys, and welcome back to the Spruce and Linen channel. I'm Janelle, and today we're going to talk about how to weave plaid. So let's get started. Today we're going to be doing something kind of different where we're actually going to use the yarn as our warp and our weft. So this would be more of a technique that you would use on a rigid heddle loom or a floor loom, but we're going to do it today on our frame looms. I will say that when it comes to making a woven wall hanging, I can't be entirely sure if you really scaled this up and made a really big piece with yarn as your warp string, that it won't be too heavy on the yarn. I'm not sure, but for something small, this will definitely work. So let's talk about plaid. One way that you can kind of plan out your plaid before you begin is you just take, a scrap piece of paper or cardboard or something like that, and your yarns of choice. I'm using, this is Lion Brand Thick and Quick, as is this, and I think this is Loops and Threads Cozy Wool, all you can find at your big box craft store. You definitely want something thick for this, depending on the set of your loom. If you wanted to double warp your loom, you could definitely use a thinner yarn for this. But we're gonna go in with a chunky yarn. So I kind of have already figured out what I want my plaid pattern to be. I would definitely recommend doing everything in even numbers for this because you're gonna want to be able to tie off your yarn warp strings on the bottom of your loom so that you can hang it from the loops on the top. Because something like this, because we're gonna have so much bulk, that would be really difficult to tie off and tuck back into your weaving without creating a lot of bulk. So I would definitely recommend hanging this type of weaving right from the loops of your warp. Like I said, I've already kind of planned out what I want mine to be, but I'll just show you how you can do this. So I'm gonna start with 2 white, and then I'm gonna go in with 2 of this sort of rusty brown color, back to my white. And you can look up plaid on Pinterest or Google and you can definitely get lost in all the different kinds that there are. But for this, I'm gonna just keep it nice and simple. And then I'm gonna go in with this black and I'm going to do a wider chunk. So I'm gonna do 6. And then back with my white, back with the brown. And I can continue on like that, but I'm kind of liking the way that this is all spaced out, and you can just kind of use this technique just to kind of come up with what you want to do. I definitely recommend making it all symmetrical. Like I said, use an even amount of strings so that you can always be tying everything at the bottom of your loom, and I'm happy with this, so we're going to get started with warping our loom. A project like this where you're using a warp string, if you will, warp string. This is a lot stretchier than a cotton warp string or a linen warp string. So I will say that it's kind of one of those not too tight, not too loose situations because you don't want it to be super loose or it's going to be really difficult for you to weave. But you also don't want it to be super tight because when you take it off the loom, that's going to really compress everything and it might look a little bit uneven. And you definitely want to try to keep your tension as even as you can. So the warping of this will be just like usual. And like I said, keeping things even will make this a lot easier in the long run. So as with my pattern that I had on my piece of paper, I started with 2 of these, and then I'm going to go in with 2 of the brown, so 1, 2, and then I'm going to go back in with the white. So what I'm doing here, instead of just tying this off every time, is I'm actually going to keep going with my white yarn. Then I have 6 strands of black that I'm going to do after this white and orange section. So then on the next one, I'm gonna go back in with the white. Skipping 2 again for that orange section. skipping 6 for the black. So now I've got 2 more strands, and then I'm going to skip 2 again for the orange or brown. And then this will be the end. So that's just a way that you can warp so that you're not having to tie off each individual section of each color. Next, I'm going to go in with my rusty brown color. Now you can make your plaid as simple or as complex as you like. If you want to just do checks, kind of like my sweater here, you could just do white, black, white, or something like that. Like I said, definitely get on Pinterest and Google and search for plaid because there are so many different ways you could go with this. So I'm skipping this whole section again and just going in between the white with this rusty color. And then lastly, we're going to add the black. Oh no, I made a mistake. All right, you guys, so I made a mistake and I didn't leave enough space for 6 strings here. So I am attempting to just scooch everything over by hand. I think it'll be okay. But hey, there's nothing like knowing that everyone makes mistakes, right? Now I can finish that last, oh, now I have to scooch all those over. Never mind. So now that I've fixed my mistake, I can get my last 2 strings on here for the black. Now we've got our little piece of cardboard in, and once again, if you're making an actual woven wall hanging using this technique, when you're tying this off, I would just tie overhand knots like I've shown you in finishing many times before, but then don't tuck them back in because it's just going to create a lot of bulk in this situation. So I do your overhand knot and then just trim it. You'll have your fringe that will cover everything up anyway. It's not my favorite way of finishing. You know, I like a super clean finish, but in this case, we don't want to compromise the weaving by trying to tuck in all these super bulky ends. With weaving plaid like this, it's actually incredibly simple. All you're going to do is however many strings you have here, you're going to weave in. So I'm going to be weaving in 2 white, then 2 rust, then 2 white, 6 black, and so on. And you will see the pattern going through. Again, I'm just going to be using plain weave, but you can also do this with a simple twill pattern as well, which we do have a video for. I'll stick a link in here if you like, but I'm just going to stick with a basic plain weave. Now, the idea with a plaid is that you want the same amount of weft strings within an inch as you want the warp strings. So this is going to be what's called a balanced cloth. Now, so that might mean, depending on your warp set, that you don't want to be beating down too hard. This is a loom with 4 ends per inch, but if you are using one with 5 ends per inch, you might be squishing them down a little bit more. there is our very basic plaid pattern. We have a ton of ends on the side to tuck in, so I'm going to quickly show you how to do a couple of those, and then I'll show you it when it's all finished. So it's not necessarily the best that these are all on the same side, so if you wanted to start one of your colors going the other way so that you kind of have them evened out, you can definitely do that. But this is going to be kind of similar to how we always tuck in ends. This last one, since it's on an end, I'm going to go through one more of those warp strings just so that it's looped around there. And then I'm literally just going to go through probably just 2 weft strings, as you can see here. Tuck that in, cut it off. And there is a simple plaid. Like I said, if you would want the cloth a bit tighter woven, so you can see here on the sides, our ends are a little bit sparse, and this is just because of the warp set. If you haven't watched the warp set video, I will put a link here for you. But basically, this is a loose set cloth. If we wanted this a little bit tighter and all these ends to be a little bit closer together, you would just need to use a tighter warp set. So again, this is a 4 ends per inch. I think this would be a little bit better on a 5 ends per inch, but there's definitely nothing wrong with this. I think it's really pretty. It just is a little bit different on the sides than you might be used to when doing tapestry, whereas this is almost more like, you know, like a scarf or a blanket. All right, you guys, so that is how to weave plaid. I can't wait to see what you guys do with this one. There's so many different things you can do, different color combinations and all of that good stuff. If you like this video, please hit that like button, subscribe, and click the bell to get notifications when I post new videos. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. I just wanted to drink more of my chai latte. I've got like all the fall vibes. And my hair in my tea. Damn, that's good.